This is the Cheer.fm podcast with Jesse Spitzer, session number 7. Welcome back to another episode of the Cheer FM podcast. Today is part 2 of a special that's dedicated to dance, but applicable to cheerleading too. So let's dive in. All right, guys, today I am so excited about this interview. Calling in all the way from Germany today. Y'all are going to get the scoop from the former coach of the Carlsbad High School dance team and the San Diego State University dance program, with over 25 years of UDA staff experience and expertise as a judge and choreographer. Welcome to the show, Carrie Smith.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today, Carrie. If you don't mind me asking, how in the world did you end up living in Germany?
Well, my husband is active duty military, and we had the privilege of moving over here. He's stationed here, so I am having a European adventure, I like to call it.
That's so cool.
And it's really cool because I've been working with some dance teams over here. So, I mean, dance teams and cheerleading too are really catching on in Europe and in other parts of the world. And it's really interesting to see how they emulate what's happening in the United States. So we are trendsetters for sure.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And I know there's like a lot of talk about, cheerleading becoming an Olympic sport. What's the scene over there?
Well, I think really they're just the Europeans in general. There's some really great teams who have, had mentors from the United States come over here and really help them get their program started, and they've really taken off. But really people, just lay people in Europe, they don't really know dancing and cheerleading as we know it.
Right.
So it's just interesting to see there when I try to explain to them what I do. It's a little bit tricky, but the dance teams over here that I've worked with, I just went to Scotland this past week, and then I worked with a team in Zurich and one in Vienna, and they're good and they're dedicated and they're committed and they're hard workers. And let me tell you, it's hard to say 5, 6, 7, 8 and speak in German.
Oh man, I never even thought about that.
Yes, and most of them speak English because most Europeans, I shouldn't say most, but many Europeans speak English. So, but they're into it, and they're hungry, and it's really cool to see.
That's so cool. So fill me in. How did your journey into the dance industry begin?
Well, I danced on my high school dance team. I'm actually from New Mexico, and I had just a really great dance teacher who inspired me and really influenced my life. And so when I went to college, I got my degree in physical education so that I could teach dance. And then one day went to a job fair and boom, ended up moving to California and taught at a couple different high schools and ended up at Carlsbad High School, which was, an awesome experience. And then jumped over. I taught a little bit, coached a little bit with Dean Cortez at Poway High School. And then the best job I've ever had, San Diego State University. I love coaching at the college level. And in the meantime was UDA staff. So it was like dance team was just always part of my life. And that's where most of my friends are. If I want to do something fun, I actually work. So I think, it's just sort of in my blood.
That's so cool. And I know you have like 25 years of experience as a UDA staff member. What are some of your most valued and cherished experiences with all of that?
Well, being on UDA staff, I really grew up in UDA, and, some of my best friends, are former UDA staff, and we had a lot of great times together. Taught a lot of camps and a lot of places. Including internationally, which was probably some of the best experiences that I had. But I think mostly it's the people. And then I met a lot of coaches, and these coaches are friends for life, and we're all in the same boat, which is why we, kind of are working on this National Dance Team Coaches Association to try to connect people.
For sure.
Because as coaches, we all live on our own little islands, and we need a networking system through which we can communicate and we can support each other and we can share ideas. You can still compete against somebody and be their friend,
right?
And still network with them, because when we get better and we help somebody get better, we all get better and our profession gets better.
Absolutely.
And frankly, right now, coaches are really, in this day and age, sometimes some of them are just trying to survive. And so having a network is so important. So I think that I've kind of come full circle. And because I've been doing this for so long, I feel like it's kind of time to give back and look at the bigger picture. And that's why we're here today to talk about the NDCA.
Yeah, that's so cool. That is so cool. I wanted to ask you too, because I know you have a lot of choreography experience. What does your choreography process look like?
Well, I'm a real detail-oriented person. So, I mean, I like to have a theme. I like to have a reason. I like to have some inspiration for, whatever music choices or theme that we're choosing. And this routine that I just did in Zurich, then once I get the music done, then the music tells me what to do. And I really spend a lot of time. I need to know what every person's doing on every count. Some choreographers can get in there and do it on the spot. And that's just not my style. I like to have plan A. I like for it to be solid, and I have to do plan B. Then I can do that. But I think that coaches and dancers appreciate it too, because, if you've got somebody that's changing the counts and the movements every couple minutes, sometimes it's hard to stay motivated and to really remember what's going on.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you if you typically did music before or after choreography. So almost always before.
You know what? Always before. But it's interesting. This team that I recently worked with over here in Europe, they actually had the routine and then laid the music on top of it. And I don't think that really that is a process that dance choreographers use very often at all.
Right.
One tool, of course, that I am using lately is I will do some actual teaching before I get there on video. And I have a little studio set up in my basement, and I do some teaching, and then the team can sort of work on that and digest it, especially the hard parts. If I have a trick or if I have a turn series, then they can work on it ahead of time. And I feel like my advantage.
How has your experience as a judge changed the way that you choreograph and coach?
Well, I mean, the first thing it does is have you look at the score sheet.
Yeah.
Any competition, the first thing you should do is look at the score sheet and see what's being valued on the score sheet. If difficulty is being valued, then you have to really be sure that you are paying attention to that. I just spoke with a coach yesterday, and we were looking at a score sheet. Difficulty was 10 points out of 100. So, she has basically some new dancers. So we were talking about ways to incorporate difficulty when you don't have your entire team that can do some sort of difficult skill. And then, there's always should I be clean or should I be difficult? Because we could do the difficulty, but it won't be as clean. I think all of us struggle with that.
Yeah.
So we were talking about that. So I think as a judge, then when I go back and I'm a choreographer, I'm like, okay, the beginning is so important. Why? Because it gets people's attention. And in the first 10 seconds, the judges can see, do you have good technique or do you not? Is this routine going to be worth watching, or am I just going to be looking for things that I need to write down to, validate my scoring? So right away, that beginning is so important. If I've seen 20 routines and you're routine number 21, how are you going to stand out to me? So I think that being a judge, then I go back and think of it as a choreographer, like, okay, where are my components and my pieces? Where is going to be the climax of my routine? And is it close to the end? And what is this team good at, so that we make sure we highlight what they're good at, and the things that they're not so good at that we put in there, but we really, sometimes you got to use a little smoke and mirrors.
Right. Well, I know you've coached at some phenomenal dance programs. Taking all of your experiences into consideration, what would be the single biggest piece of advice you would offer a dance coach who's maybe just starting out?
Well, I actually had two things. Number one is that, you've got to find a mentor. You have to find some people, because you are by yourself.
Yeah.
When you have that first experience with a parent who comes up to you and is in your face and is angry and you're sort of looking wide-eyed like, oh my goodness. And you don't feel like, gosh, I don't want to go to my boss because then it looks like I can't handle the situation. And, other people maybe don't understand. So to have a mentor, somebody that you can call and say, this is my situation and this is what I'm thinking about doing. And what do you advise that I do? Or just even somebody to listen to you that understands. You go home and you tell your spouse, and your spouse is like, really? It's like, this is dance team. It's really not that big of a deal. And you're like, you don't understand. It is a big deal.
Right.
That's the biggest thing, is to find a mentor, to find some networking, to find some people that you can talk to, that you can get advice from, paperwork from, ideas from. And then the final thing is just always do what's right for kids. If in the end you're thinking about like, what decision should I make right now? You just always, as long as the decisions that you're making and the things that you're doing are best for kids, then you can sleep at night. Then you can get in front of that parent and defend yourself for your decision that you made. And you can go to your administrator and you can say, this is why I did it. And always the reason is because I thought this is what was best for kids.
I love that. And I think that's just like a huge, powerful, if everyone could at the core come back to that. Absolutely.
Right. Then you can defend yourself. And unfortunately, sometimes you end up in a situation where you have to defend yourself. And again, this whole networking thing, that's one reason that the NDCA is so important.
Yeah.
Even the people that went to our Congress last year, they met all of these people, and then boom, we're like, wow, I never thought I would meet that coach. And I've studied their team for so long. And I really love the way they do their transitions. And I've watched them. And now I actually met the coach and find out that coach has all the same problems that I do.
Yeah.
So I think it's super cool.
For sure. I totally agree. How would that advice maybe differ a little bit for a seasoned coach?
Well, I think once you've been a seasoned coach, and you've done things for a few years, then it becomes, okay, how can I keep this fresh? How can I keep this fun and exciting and relevant for me too? Because after you've been a coach for a while, if you've survived that long, you're obviously doing a good job.
Yeah.
You're obviously making a difference, and you're being successful at some level because you are continuing to be in the job. So then it's like, okay, I've got my procedures and the way that I do things, but how can I spice it up? How can I change it up? Because if things are the same year after year after year, and you're not growing, you're not pushing yourself and your team out of your comfort zone, then it just becomes stagnant, or you get burnt out. And I think too, then pulling the younger generation, when I left San Diego State to move to Germany, the person who took my spot had been my assistant coach, and she danced for me at Carlsbad. So I like to say I've sufficiently brainwashed her, and she, thinks like I do. And I knew that I could trust her, and she and I talk all the time. And, I don't tell her what to do, but sometimes she'll call and say, hey, what about this or what about that? And I think that's part of our job as we grow and as we age and as we mature and as we are successful. We have to turn around and bring it up the next generation, because dance team has affected my life so positively. I want that for other people too, other people that want it for themselves, of course. And so in order to do that, they need mentors. I can't be everybody's mentor, and pretty soon I'm going to be too old to do anything. So we need other people who are trained, for keeping it real, because there's some things like hard work, that's not going to change ever. Styles might change, costuming might change, music might change, time limits of routines might change, but what's never going to change is hard work. And to teach kids to work hard and to get in there and dig. I mean, that's in today's teaching environment, it's really important to know how to do.
For sure. What, I know, so we're kind of talking about like where dance can go and the future of dance. In terms of choreography, what do you think can help someone continue to be on the cutting edge of dance?
Well, I think, being aware of what other people are doing is one thing. Seeing shows, sometimes I'll get an idea for choreography just by going and watching a show. Getting out there and seeing what's happening in the world. The thing that scares me is it's like, how much better can we get?
Right.
You watch these teens at any nationals, pick your nationals, it doesn't matter. You watch these teens and you're like, what now?
Yeah.
What now are you going to do? Because it's so fabulous. It's so amazing. So I think, I really don't know where it's going to go, but as long as it's going somewhere, as long as it's moving forward, as long as it's going out of the box, then let's see.
Right.
Let's wait and see.
Then we're on the right track.
Exactly. But trust me, there's nothing wrong with doing an old school routine either, because I am all about the old school, but I think mixing it up and having a reason behind your choreography really gives it the significance. And sometimes maybe the reason is just to have fun, just to let off steam.
Yeah.
Maybe, to interact with teachers in your school. You might do a routine with teachers, and that could be the reason. But having a reason and having a goal and making things relevant and significant for kids, you're on the right track.
Yeah, definitely. So in the last episode, I got some awesome insight from your friend, Terry Rowe, about the NDCA. And she kind of talked to me about how the two of you had always talked about like that you need to write a book, and one thing led to the next, and here we are. So what led you to get involved and serve the NDCA?
Well, I think that, Terry and I, we have talked and we've laughed, because we're, like I said, we have a lot of experience and we're like, gosh, we got to write this down for somebody, and we'd always kind of joke about it. And then she came up with this idea. And like I said, Terry is really the person with the vision. And I'm the person mostly with the jokes. Let's be clear. But she came and she said, we don't have a professional organization that's national. There are some really great professional organizations that are small, maybe at the state level, where coaches are getting together and they're, communicating and sharing, but nothing that's national, nothing that's really looking at sort of the big picture of dance team. And that's talking about dance, because even though dance and cheer are often put together, they really are two separate things.
Absolutely.
And we have our own needs and our own our own thing that we do. And I've coached cheer before too, and so has Terry. And I think that a lot of coaches have gone back and forth between cheer and dance because our circles are connected.
For sure.
So Terry said, "Hey, this is what I think we should do." And I said, "Well, that sounds good to me." Really not realizing that, wow, this is a lot of work.
Right.
And that we're starting from scratch. And, we're a nonprofit. So that means we had to fill out all of that paperwork. Yeah. All of us are volunteers. So we still have our regular jobs. We still have all the things that we do, in our regular lives. And then this is all like just labor of love.
Yeah.
This is, can we get this together, and can we make one that's an association that's not affiliated with any company?
Right.
Coaches need to make decisions that are best for their team. And there are lots of companies that provide a lot of really great services. And it would be really great for us to pull all those in so coaches have access to all of them, but they make their own decisions.
For sure.
So anyway, she said, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I said, "Hey, this sounds like a good idea." And here I am.
Yeah. Well, for coaches who are already part of a state coaches association, how might the National Dance Coaches Association differ or add a different level of value?
Well, here's what I think about that. When you go to your state association, and I've been to state association meetings. Like I said, I'm from New Mexico, and we have a great state association that runs the state competition, and they're led by Sally Marquez, and she's just like really attentive and professional, and she's awesome. But when we're there and we're having those meetings, we're talking about the schedule of state competition and what doors people will come in through, and how they turn their paperwork into register, and what are the rules. And, there might be a little bit of inspiration here and there. I know that when I was in New Mexico, we, had some speakers, including Terry Rowe, come out and talk to the coaches and give them some inspiration. But really, you're there with people from your state that and you're talking about mostly logistics.
Yeah.
Some other states could be different, but that's my experience. But the purpose of this organization is not competition. We're not in competition with each other. This is a supportive thing. This is a one voice for dance team. And the people that we're bringing in, the guest speakers that we have lined up right now are, for instance, my two favorite ones off the top of my head are Proactive Coaching, who really talks about motivating kids. I mean, at San Diego State, I was having some trouble with confidence on the team. Like, they have these beautiful dancers, and then I'm like, look at me in the eye and dance and sell it to me, and they couldn't. And
right.
I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Proactive Coaching has a booklet called Confidence. It's a little booklet. It's maybe 10 pages. I got it. It's $5.
Yeah.
I read it. I went verbatim, like they said, step 1, step 2, step 3. And I did exactly what it told me to do. And hallelujah. In that case, it worked out well for us. But I really like what they have. And then Growing Leaders, this is life-changing. It really is life-changing for teachers. It's talking about this generation of kids. And I'm from the 80s. And in the 80s, everything sucked. Our parents sucked. School sucked. Our teachers sucked. We were really kind of like angry. We didn't really know what about, but we were just mad. And,
right.
We grew out of it and we all grew to be productive, cool, healthy people. But each generation has its own characteristics. And I think as teachers, we have to be able to adapt to that generation. When I talked on the phone in high school, it was on a rotary phone that had a cord that was attached and I had to stand in the kitchen and talk on the phone. We didn't have social media. We didn't have all these things that, the TV turned off at midnight.
Yeah.
So this generation, if I don't work to understand them, and how their lives are different than mine growing up, then it's really hard for me to be an effective teacher. So these Tim Elmore Growing Leaders, just when I read his stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I used it a lot at San Diego State and teaching each generation about their generation. Like these are the characteristics of your generation. And then they go, oh, okay. And they can understand. And what I love about this new generation is they're totally positive. Like, hey, we can do this. We can save the world. I can make a difference.
Right.
And that attitude is a great attitude to have. But now we got to figure out how to get them to work hard and buy in and, work hard today and you're not going to be rewarded for 6 months, Yeah. So there are other issues. And so these speakers that we have coming in, and this is where Terry's really good, are out of the box.
Right.
We have somebody coming in that does technique classes online. So if you live in Podunk, fill in the blank, and you don't have access to an awesome dance studio, you can subscribe to this program and take a dance class where you learn terminology, where you learn proper alignment.
Yeah.
So we have somebody coming in to share that. So we're not talking about what are the rules of your competition.
Right.
We're not talking about how to put on a good car wash. We're talking about big things to take your program to the next level that are more than the 5, 6, 7, 8.
I love it. And I think I just see the networking as a huge area for people to take advantage of. The networking and just information sharing coming from all parts of the country. I think it's just so huge.
Yes. And even if you're just having a glass of wine and you're talking to somebody and you've studied their routine and you say, hey, how did you get that? Blah, blah, blah. And they say, oh, let me tell you. And then you go, wow. And I think it also gives credibility to coaches. When you go home and your kids say, why do we have to do that? And you say, well, you know what? I heard from the coach of blah, blah, blah that they do this. And they'll go, oh, really?
Right.
You get some street cred by knowing others. And plus, I, as a college coach, let me tell you, there have been some dancers that have come to my college auditions. And luckily, I know a lot of people. And I can make a phone call and say, hey, tell me about this dancer.
Right.
This dancer might be borderline. And if this coach says, this is the most amazing kid who will work her butt off for you, then I'm more likely to take it. And sometimes I call and they say, trouble.
Right.
Trouble.
Right.
And then I go, you know what? Thanks a lot. Because, kids need to know there are consequences, number one. And number two, why should I go through all this pain and drama if you've already done it? I don't need to do it myself. So that sharing, it makes all of us better. So just showing up is coaches are going to get so much, and you're going to meet people out of your state. So if you've been coaching for 20 years and you know everybody in their state, their cousin, their husbands, you know what routine they did 10 years ago, what song they did in the kick division, you're going to meet people, you're going to get outside of your box. And that is what we really need to do, because we don't have that and every other profession does.
For sure. And so the conference, the very first NDCA conference coming up this May, the 17th through 19th in Las Vegas, correct?
Yes.
And it just, like I keep saying, it just looks like massive high value opportunity for members and coaches. So what are you most looking forward to about the conference?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing friends and meeting new friends. Like I said, there's some people, like I've been around a long time, that I have seen from afar, that I've maybe heard of, and it's a really great place to walk up and say, hi, I'm Carrie Smith, and I'd really like to meet you. And you know what? Every single time I've done that, people have been like, oh my gosh, I've heard about your team, or and even if they haven't, people are really nice. So that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most. And then the next thing is just, hearing these speakers. Frankly, we're not booking anybody we don't want to hear.
Right.
So the people that we have coming to speak so far, the schedule's still in the works, and maybe somebody listening to this podcast is going to say, you know what we need? And they have an idea, and they have a name and a speaker, or they're a speaker themselves, and they say, wow, I can really contribute in this way. Get on the website, contact us, and let us know. This is not us, meaning the executive board, or the board of people. This is for everybody. So somebody comes and says, I have an idea. We're listening. And you know what we say too? Well, come on and help us, because there are a lot of things to do to make this happen. And we can't have too much help. We still have a couple areas we could really use some help. So if somebody's listening and you're motivated and you're ready to, some coaches are maybe just surviving. Like, I just need to get through tryouts. I just need to graduate these seniors, or whatever your thing is. You know what? Finish out what you need to do. But if you're a person, and maybe even a retired person, it's like, I coached for 25 years and I still maybe want to be involved a little bit, but I don't have my own team. That's okay. Come join us, and we can find something where you can still contribute.
I love that. And it's like, it's the opportunity to both contribute and just come and get recharged.
Yes.
Awesome.
That is exactly it. And we chose Las Vegas because we felt like that was a place where people could get, some flights in and out. Vegas has a lot of flights, so we were hoping that that would be an easy spot. But we're also looking at like, hey, maybe there's a different location that we could try for the next year. If they're like, oh, that's too far for me to go, well, then contact us and say, hey, what about Chicago? What about Miami? What about, like I said, nothing is set in stone, and it's a very, we have a constitution, we have bylaws, we have all these things set up, but doesn't mean they can't change, doesn't mean it can't evolve. And anybody that wants to get involved and give back to our profession and help our profession as a whole go to the next level, well, come on and join us.
Yeah. Now, let's say for members that are unable to attend the conference, but they're members, will they have access to any of this information that's shared, or speakers? Will you guys be recording that and opening that up somehow digitally? Do you have any idea about that?
Well, we're not planning at this point to digitally broadcast anything, but we have talked about that, and we have, consulted some people on how that gets done, and things like that. And I think that when our membership numbers grow, and that becomes something that could affect a large number of people,
for sure,
that's something we look at. But when you're a member, we're not holding anything back. We still are in the plans for what we will be recording, what presenters will be, their handouts and things like that, their notes. And so, if you're a member, you will have access. We have an archive that already has a lot of documents that coaches can go to find tryout material, or, different, what do I want to say? Like, you need a form, and you're like, I don't even know where to start to create this form. Like, guidelines and policies. What are other teams' rules? Well, we have some examples of team rules, and you could take that and start with it and go from that. So being a member gives you access to things. We also are in the works of finishing our credential, because really, think about this. There is nothing that certifies you to be a dance teacher.
Right.
So when that parent says, I'm going to see you, and Lord knows I've been in the room with the attorney before, and they say, well, what credential do you have that says you can be a dance coach? And what if you're a 22-year-old person that's still in college?
Right.
What are you going to say? I've been dancing since I was 3. And they're going to like, and? So we're trying to create credentials that, and we have created the credentials. Actually, they're done. We're just in the works of getting them out. That certify that you have had some training on how to be a coach, and a safety one too. Let's say one of your kids gets hurt. We have a safety credential that is solely for dance. So it's not cheer based. Sometimes we dance people, we sit in a safety credential and they're talking about cupies and liberties and, basket tosses. And we're like, we don't do any of these. Right. But what if I do this dance lift? And like, well, that's not really in the book. Well, so we need something to know. If you're teaching somebody a head kip, what's the progression, the safe progression to be sure that they don't have a neck injury? And if they do get a neck injury, how can you prove that you followed the progressions that you should have?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, this stuff, I don't even know why. I'm like, how did I work in this industry for 30 years? And this never occurred to me,
Yeah.
It's time. And so we're on the move.
It absolutely is. And I think a lot, like you mentioned earlier, that you've also coached cheer. And I think that's maybe where the issue has been, is that there's so much bleed over between cheer and dance, but it's absolutely not the same thing. And so I'm just excited to kind of be connected and involved and following what the NDCA is bringing for the dance industry.
Yes, well, we really appreciate the opportunity to get our message out. And we hope that people at least go and look at our website, which is www.nationaldancecoaches.org. Just go on and look at it.
For sure.
And see what it says. And if you go, not into it right now, that's cool. But at least be aware of what we're doing, what we're trying to do. And, we hope that people will say, hey, this might be something I want to check it out. And then go straight to your administrator and say, I want to get some training. I want to network with these people, and come on, school, help me pay for myself to get there, or your booster club or whatever. Coaches, we're really creative about making things happen. We've had to on our little budgets or zero budgets. But this is something that can really, if you're on the verge of getting burnt out, on the verge of burning out, come and get refreshed.
Yeah.
If you want to network with people, come and meet people. If you have something to contribute, come and contribute. But the first step is to show up.
For sure. Awesome. And Carrie, I wanted to ask you, because I know that you're a speaker, a judge, a choreographer. Is there a way people can get in touch with you about some of the services you offer?
Well, I live in Germany.
Yeah.
So if you're in Italy, you're close by. If you're in Massachusetts, not so much. But yes, and let me tell you, you're going to laugh at this when I tell you my email address is Carrie, SM, as in the first two letters of Smith, the number 9, at AOL.com. And that just tells you how old I am.
Yep,
I'm never
AOL.
changing my email. AOL rocks. It still works. I'm never changing it. Everybody knows how to get in touch with me that way. But you should see the young ones chuckle at me. Actually, everybody chuckles when I tell them my email address, but it's CarrieSM9 at AOL.com. I'm also on Facebook, and I have the big NDCA logo as my cover photo. And I'm always, happy to help, whoever needs help, even if it's just directing them to the right person.
Absolutely. And I imagine that your personal network is huge. So
yes, I have, like I said, most of my friends are dancers.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I think that we have covered it, and I just want to say I'm really thankful and appreciative for everything. And if you're out there coaching, know that you're not alone. We all have the same problems. We all live the same lives, just on different islands. So come and join us, and it's guaranteed you're at least going to have fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Carrie.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and take a minute to leave a review. For links to connect with the National Dance Coaches Association, visit www.cheer.fm/podcast007. Cheer FM shares two things with the world. We're a USA Cheer preferred provider offering fully compliant mixes for cheerleading and dance. We also offer information here on the podcast and on the blog.